Yes, welcome back to Football Heritage TV. Whatever time you are watching this, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm here with Sean Butler from Spurs Talk Show, from Football Inc., from all of his 4,000 channels. But today we are going to talk about Fabio Paratici is back and Johan Lange has been promoted. Sean, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's an interesting update, interesting story. Yeah, I've got my initial take on it, and probably not going to be the one that most people are thinking right now. Like, I'm delighted he's back, but I think that there's, I don't know, I genuinely, well, we'll talk about it in a second, but like, I genuinely think that this one maybe has short-term gain. But I think there might be some long-term pain in the natural consequences of having, two people that are essentially at the same degree of authority in a football club. It's a rarity to see it, and I'm not sure how well it's going to work out. I'm a little bit suspicious about this one, Savva. But how are you, mate? You good?
I'm very good. I'm liking this new dynamic that you are the negative one and I am the positive. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. I'll still get called out, but it's good fun.
Just to be clear, it's not negative. Just my opinion about this slants negative relative to those that see it in a more positive light.
Glass half empty. We've had that chat this morning. Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. We'll bring up what Spurs said on the official website in a minute, but it's an interesting one because the whole will he, won't he return for Paratici. This feels like it's been going on for. I mean, when did he leave? 2023. It feels like we've had this now for 2 years of Fabio's back. No, he's not. He's back. No, he's in trouble again, but now he's back. And we know he was a consultant, and now he's back full time. We will get into it. And also news that Spurs haven't finished there. They're looking to add another chef to the kitchen. This is a busy old kitchen, this. So we'll get into it.
The sous chef, director of football role, still open to be looking for employment. Yeah.
Can you imagine two head chefs? Yes, chef. Yes, head chef. Yes, chef. Like, just it's a lot of yes men.
How many kitchens have two head chefs, Savva? Let's start there. Come on,
right.
Now.
Right. Well, listen, let's start with a positive. We'll get in. Actually, we'll go to that in a minute. Let's have a little look. Let's have a look what's been said. Right, but there we are. The dream team, I've called this. The Spurs dream team have assembled. I don't think anyone was really expecting this today, but the club announcement: Tottenham Hotspur unveil new men's football leadership structure, and we won't read it all, but we'll get to the important bits. I guess the headline is that we're delighted to announce the return of Paratici as the club sporting director, and he will partner with Johan Lange, who's been promoted to also become sporting director, part of a new structure for the men's operation, designed to strengthen leadership, collaboration, yada, 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 yada. It says Johan and Fabio's combined expertise will ensure that every decision from player pathways and performance development to scouting and recruitment is aligned and support one overarching goal: to build a winning world-class men's team that endures. Before I go any further, I mean, it is nice to see, Sean, that there's some transparency now in the club. We're actually getting some communication. It's telling us exactly who is doing what, and it went into detail as to what Paratici, he's going to be more player pathway. He's going to be more speaking to the players, transfers and player pathway, whereas Lang's going to be a little bit more about the scouting and all the other types of things. Talk to me your first initial feelings to all of this.
Look, okay, my first initial feelings are it's great to have Paratici back. I think he oversaw a relatively good progression in the things that he did in the time that he was here. I think his relationships, his conviviality, his amenability, his chemistry with other people from other clubs is a positive. In Daniel Levy's absence, these are the positives, right? I'll give you the positives first. Daniel Levy oversaw everything. When Fabio Paratici was on a 2-year transfer ban, or 2-year a ban, regardless of whether he acted as a consultant, he wasn't allowed to be involved in any negotiations. He wasn't allowed to be in any boardrooms, any meetings officially. I'm sure he was doing things from behind the scenes, whatever. But with his with that absence, Daniel Levy took on more and more and more. Like it or not, basically we knew that for the last couple of years there was intermediaries involved who weren't necessarily always on the right page. And if it wasn't them that were taking over things, it was Daniel Levy. And then we've seen recently a number of stories that could have maybe gone a different way that ended up going south, possibly because of Daniel Levy and the relationships that he has. Essentially, one of the negatives I'll always say about him is that he didn't have great relationships. He burnt a lot of bridges. So him out of the way is a good thing. Then there's a vacuum. And I said it when he was gone, like with him off the reins, there's going to be a vacuum of like responsibility and accountability that needs to be taken on by whoever it is that fills that gap. It's great to have Paratici back in that regard.
Yeah.
For me, though, the concern is too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, right? I don't know of another football club in the Premier League. I don't know of any football clubs around Europe, big ones, that have two people that have exactly the same title, exactly the same power, that have to work together, and that ultimately also, as far as we can tell, don't necessarily work on the same kind of just view football, directorship football through the same sort of lens, right? Some of them are a little like Paratici maybe is someone who uses data to find potential targets, but then goes and trusts his eye. Maybe Johan Lang is someone that's a bit more leans towards the data to verify his opinion rather than to be the basis of it. And that's a conflict. Even when you hear that there's a delineation of oversight and that one of them's going to be involved in more around the youth strategy. So Lang's going to be more around the youth strategy, right? Cool. And Paratici's around more around the transfers. Great. But Paratici's also responsible with the loans and the pathway. Doesn't that overlap into the youth strategy?
Yeah,
So like, even just on
with youth. Yeah.
Even on that one micro element, which is a big element of the football club, there's already potentially a conflict there around who it is that's leading the charge. Who's deciding what's best, what's good for the goose, and is it good for the gander? Not necessarily sure. I would also say that Paratici was responsible, Savva, for restructuring the entire youth department before Lang got in.
Yeah.
And he had the ear of Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy had no idea what we had a terrible youth system for years. Paratici comes in and says, "This is terrible. You've got to do it a different way." And Levy listened to him and tore up the book. And then he built that. And then Langer comes in and goes and buys 3 or 4 players that are 18, 19 or 20 years old that block the pathway for the entire purposes of what Paratici built 2 years before. Like, I've worked in the corporate world, Savva, I'm 41 years old. For 20 years, I worked in it, right? I know one thing. I know jack shit about so many things in life, but I know a little bit about one thing, and that is that egos are going to ego when it comes to corporate. And if you've got two people that have the same amount of authority and yet view the game through different lenses, there's going to be a power grab at some point. There's going to be credibility taking. There's going to be an argument. There's going to be conflict. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying that there's probably a reason why no other club does that sort of model, because at some point you need a hierarchy of power. What happens if Paratici and Lang feel very different about certain things? Who gets the final say? And if it becomes a compromise, then no one gets their say, and you end up with a third-party outcome that neither of the people that you've employed based on their expertise, if neither people are getting their way, or if they'll say, "I'll let you have this one and I'll get the next one," if it becomes one of those like what are we doing here?
This is what Vinay was actually asked that, right? I don't know if you've had the opportunity to watch what Vinay said in his 5-6 minutes about this, and he said he said, what happens if they can't agree? And he said, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that. They've both got different remits. And Vinay also said, he said this. He said they are both outstanding football minds with complementary expertise and strong track records. Now, this is interesting because this now makes me start questioning things. Now, I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. I don't think excited is what I'm intrigued to see how this develops and how this plays out. But this now makes me start thinking. So these signings that we've had then in the summer, like if we're looking at Kudus, if we're looking at Paulinho, was this Paratici as part of his consultant role, looking at senior players? Was this Johan Lang? If that's the case, what has Johan Lang done to deserve a promotion? It makes me ask all these questions, Sean.
Yeah.
Lang being promoted, let's go with that route for the moment. Many Spurs fans are not particularly happy with Lang. I don't think they're unhappy, but they always say, "Oh, what's Lang do?" He's very vanilla and he hasn't really done a lot. Promotion? Does he deserve a promotion?
No, I don't think he does. I don't think he's been. A lot of people have sort of cast their die on Lang. I don't think he's been horrendous. I think that the Bergvall story obviously is his the sort of major takeaway with getting that guy ahead of Barcelona was fantastic. Other than that, we don't know how much of the mandate that he had was predetermined, that they wanted to lean into the youth sort of style of football.
Yeah.
Or the youth at the end, youth in the football, because everyone was going in that direction. But as I said in the previous answer, we had a debate about this on the Spurs 5 on Monday. The pathway was blocked, right? The pathway of which Paratici was responsible for building, that hasn't necessarily yielded the results that he probably hoped would be demonstrated by now, is in no small part because since he was put to the side because of his own personal problems, the other guy came in, and whether it was from his decision directive or from Daniel Levy's or someone else's, we went and bought 3 or 4 players that were competing with those young kids, paid a lot of money for them, and therefore had the need for them to get more minutes in the first team to justify the outlay. So there's already a historical, probable, kind of conflict there around you're pissing on my grave, if you like, my short-term grave, right?
I've bought this really good, strong youth player through. You created the pathway originally, but now you're buying senior players. So are you going to block the pathway for my youth player, which makes it look like I've not really done anything?
But dude, this is like human psyche, right? Human psychology. You're going to think that you've done better than you have, or you hope that you want to put out a world where people are going to perceive you to be as positive as you can. And if other people are doing things that can jeopardize that narrative, you're going to have a competitive frustration with that. On top of that, you have 2 people now that are at the same level. Very rarely do you have double CEOs. Very rarely do you have 2 people that are joint owners that see the game through different lenses, whichever industry, that then also has no conflicts and no barriers to success and growth. To me, I'm just looking at this through a lens of what's the probable outcome here? And I think that it's Vinay is kind of sat there with a bit of between a rock and a hard place, thinking, Daniel Levy's gone. Vinay Paratici was Daniel Levy's guy. And so to one degree, I'm a little bit surprised that Vinay hasn't come in and kind of wanted to stamp his own mark, his own brand, because let's be honest, the only reason that he's in charge is because there is a perception that Daniel Levy failed on some degree. But when a new guy comes into any business, you're only there because someone else that was there previously didn't do the job well enough. And so do you really want to just inherit somebody else's mistakes, quote unquote, or do you want to take it under your own sort of viewpoint? But he's brought back Paratici anyway, but he hasn't had the stones to make a decision on who's the senior authority figure. Again, I don't want to be the guy that was defending ENIC, defending Daniel Levy for years and years and years, and in the last 2 months suddenly pivot to questioning the motives and the kind of the narratives of the new vision. But my I'll be honest, my first impression of Vinay is that he makes easy decisions because he doesn't want to rock the boat. It's nice to see transparency, but the transparency doesn't really stack up. You haven't made a clear decision, and the reason why is because you probably don't have a justification to say to Lang, look, we're going to bring the previous guy back in, and he's going to be your boss. And you also know that if you say to Paratici, Lang's, who was your successor, is going to be your boss, then he's not going to come back. So instead, the easy answer is, let's just let you both be bosses. No one's in charge. You'll figure it out, right? You'll figure it out.
Yeah. You two like each other, right? You'll get on.
And spin it as some you know what? 2 heads are better than one. doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. There's egos are going to ego, Sav.
Well, let's ask then on that front. And again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. We seem to have been very desperate down the last 2 years to get Paratici back in whatever guise he comes back to the club, whether it's consultant, full-time, director, this, that. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but why? Why is this the guy? Again, it's very 50-50. If you speak to Spurs fans, 50% of them are like, oh my, yeah, listen, Bentancur and Kulusevski and Romero, and look what he did with the youth team. Other people will point at some of the poor signings and go, well, hang on, is he actually that good?
Yeah, Brian Hill, whatever else, yeah.
Of course. So why have the club, whoever's been there, whether it's Levy or Vinay, why has the club been so desperate to get Paratici back in the frame and working at the cold face of Spurs' recruitment?
Well, I would imagine it's because, as I said earlier, Daniel Levy vacating his post, who has probably held more control and restricted the autonomy of the director of football, more so than many other chairman, owners, whatever, usually do. That his absence creates a vacuum of more than just the ownership chairman figurehead. It creates a vacuum in the ability to negotiate transfers, because probably Daniel Levy took most of that on, especially so in Paratici's absence, and maybe Johan Lang proved not to be kind of that credible in that regard. And so maybe they're sitting there thinking, well, we can't justify sacking Johan Lang because he's not done anything necessarily wrong, and he's signed a few good players. And then the difficulty of knowing who to put above who and it wouldn't work. So bring them both in. But on top of that, I think the one thing I would probably acknowledge is that Daniel Levy's absence probably leaves a larger vacuum of roles and responsibilities to fill than would be natural in any other football club in the Premier League. If another chairman stepped down because of his stranglehold over every decision. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So maybe it's like, you know what, Paratici can probably do a better job in the negotiations, knowing how to structure contracts, knowing how to, more familiar with those sorts of conversations than Vinay is, better at them than Johan Lang is. And Daniel Levy was taking a lot of that strain. So with him out of the way, we need to bring someone back. Let's give that job to Paratici. But at the same time, we can't sack Johan Lang because he's fairly on top of a certain area of the game.
Well, let's move then. Look at Johan Lang, because Johan Lang, as we said, was I got my prediction wrong, but by one person, by the way. My prediction towards the end of the season was I think they're all going. I think Ange, the medical team, all the coaches, the board. I said I think everything's going, and the one that I got wrong was Lang, and it's the one that surprises me because for me he seemed like he was the most expendable. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't think that's the word. Yeah. He's the most expendable. Yeah, and he stayed and he's kept that role. So I really do think it's going to be interesting. Now, off the back of that, Sean, I want to go to the last bit that was said here. Okay, so if we look there, I'm going to go to the last paragraph here. The bit above I want to come back to in a minute about them leading with purpose, but it says to complete the structure, the club will also shortly start recruitment for a director of football operations who will support Johan and Fabio and manage a number of key functions and departments across the training centre. Now, what's interesting about this for me is you've already got Lang and Paratici covering all of this length and breadth of different football operations. Now we need a third one, Sean. Now we need a third one to be the director of football operations. Now this busy kitchen is really busy. Now it's packed. What's the thoughts behind this, and what's this person going to do?
Yeah, I don't really know, mate. To be honest, like I can't figure it out. I can't think of any other football club in that has this amount of layering. Like there's some companies though that will call the glorified receptionist the vice president of communications. And so, like, I
Yeah, yeah,
don't.
yeah.
It might just be that we want to give a nice title to someone that's basically the gopher for the other people above them, and that
Right.
might be it. But if it's not, if it's something substantial, then I think we're over layering, and I think we get the trifle looks a little bit top heavy, which is, for what it's worth, is also a common problem in publicly listed companies. You have if you have too many directors, too many categories, too many
Yeah.
segments, then you end up things don't work out that way, because again, ego is going to ego, and there's just not a clear delineation of responsibility. So I'm skeptical, mate. I'm skeptical. Look, I'm really happy that he's back, that Paratici's back. I don't know what the next guy's for, especially when you've got you're going to have Thomas Frank that's going to be a part, the third party of that natural conversation anyway. And then you've now got a fourth person. Who does he report to? Does he report to both of them? Are both of them his line manager?
Right.
You know this,
That was
right?
my next question. My next question was, is Vinay line managing, like, right now, who does Thomas Frank report into? Is his boss Vinay?
Oh, no, I guess not. No, I would imagine that's the whole point of a sporting director, right? I'm guessing
Fabio? So is
Thomas Frank's
Fabio
job,
is his
Thomas Frank,
boss?
well, Fabio and Johan, I
And then the
guess.
new sporting director?
Yeah, the director of football is. Mate, honest, this is what I mean. It's
Yeah,
confusing,
I hear you.
and then with confusion comes lack of clarity, and then you also have a situation where you're going to have four different heads that are all going to have different opinions about what it is that they're looking for. They might all come to the conclusion that they all need a left winger, but they might not all agree that Lookman is a better choice relative to Semenyo because he's going to cost 3 times less money, and then you can put the savings into a better number 9. And if you don't agree, then what happens? You get clicks, you get favoritism, you get little kind of like, you know what, yeah, well, listen, our Scandinavian buddies here, right? Thomas Frank and Johan sort of scratching each
Yeah,
other's
yeah.
back, sort of going, listen, look, I'll tell you what, mate, look, I've identified this geezer from Stockholm or whatever, and listen, like, you support me on this one because I need a win here. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that in reality. I'm being facetious, but like, you can understand what I mean, right?
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
too many people, you get agendas, and you get maybe sort of motivations to kind of because at some point someone's going to want to take credit for who it was that was signed that ended up
Of course.
banging 20
Yeah.
goals in. And then
But
also you're going to have someone saying, when someone comes in as a flop, and go, that was him. He
yeah,
wanted
right.
that. I didn't want him.
But do you know where that's going to be the funniest, Sean? That's going to be the funniest amongst us, isn't it, on YouTube? This is
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to be brilliant. Like, when a player comes in, it's going to be, my player was signed by my director of football. And then when he doesn't work, it'll be, oh, clearly it wasn't my guy. It was
Yeah.
Vinay. But so you've got
100%.
Vinay. We know Vinay runs the show. Forget Charrington for a minute. We know Vinay runs the football club right now, okay, from top to bottom. You've now got two
Vinay's just replacing the Daniel Levy without the reins on the football side, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you've got Vinay. Now we've got Lange, Paratici, and then a third one who's coming in, and probably on the org chart, it'll probably be Vinay, these two next to each other, and then just down here will probably be the third one. Do you know what I mean? Like a tiny little offshoot. You know what I mean? Like,
for both of them.
with lines going into both. Let's be fair. The key person here, though, has got to be, in all of this, it's got to be Thomas Frank, because when they're having those meetings that they will have about recruitment, which will be Lang, will be the director of football that's coming in, will be Paratici, will be Vinay, Frank has got to be the one, right? That's going to go, I call the shots. It's got to be from Thomas Frank, hasn't it? Hasn't it?
For players like, I would say, like, for the decision on whether to make players like Palini's loan permanent, 100%.
Sure.
Because he's going to be here, give or take, as long as Thomas Frank is probably going to be here. But if it comes down to whether or not we should go and sign Rayan from Vasco da Gama or Bruninho from Paranesi, right?
Well, and you've got Lang going, greatest young player I've ever seen, and Paratici going, yeah, but I don't need a young player. I need this. You've got Thomas Frank in the middle going,
saying he's not going to be here. He's not going to be at peak by the time I'm here. You heard it last year. You heard Ange Postecoglou literally say about Archie Gray and Bergvall and those young players. He said, this club have signed some of the greatest young talent in football. I just hope that I'm lucky enough to still, I'm paraphrasing here, he's like, I hope I'm here to inherit their when they're ready. And he wasn't. Right, which goes back to the argument that you and I have all the time about, or the debate we have about, whether or not these certain players should be playing more minutes or less minutes, because the manager has to sort of juggle the need for Tottenham's preparation for the next 5 years with their keeping their job. Does Thomas Frank have the overarching say on whether we should be signing a 17-year-old and dedicating 20 million quid's worth of our budget towards some kid out of Brazil, when the last time we tried that with the kid from Argentina, it didn't work out, when he needs a player now in the 9? And then if he doesn't want that player, then which one of those directors of football is he going to cozy up to try to get the deciding vote on any of these things? Who decides when you have a 50-50 split on authority? Who gets the deciding vote, Sav? That's why I'm skeptical. It might sound great on paper. That the efficiencies here, you have two minds, they're two experts, and it's all going to be brilliant. In reality, again, I'll lean into just my kind of experience in my career. That doesn't work. It very quickly becomes a he said, she said game of egos.
But this is why I'm leaning into the word intriguing more than anything else. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm really interested to see. But there is another element to all of this, and I think it's really good that Vinay is being transparent with us. I think he is a very good communicator. We can see that he's very cool. He's very calm. That is actually mirrored, by the way. If you actually look at all of our hierarchy now, Vinay is, again, I don't know these people behind the scenes. I don't know. You always see it, don't you? As so-and-so is very lively, and then behind the scenes, they're a monster. But Vinay is very cool, calm, very clear communicator. Johan Lange, whenever I've seen him, he's calm. He's clear. He talks well. Thomas Frank, very cool, very calm, talks well. I feel like what they are trying to build there is some stability and calmness amongst the ranks. I do feel that that is a positive, that Spurs are bringing in a lot of characters that will give us stop us being in the news for the wrong reasons. You know, I don't feel that any of these people, Sean, are going to say things in a press conference or in an interview where you go, what? I feel like they're all going to be very cool, calm, and collected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Like any port in a storm, right? Like you need to kind of make decisions in the short term when there's friction in the fan base. There's so many unknowns with regards to the corporate structure, the future. Where we're at right now, we're on the cusp of maybe having something where we can really move forward. We've got new money coming into the football club, but there's so many things that are unknown, and there's probably wild discussions happening, and they need to kind of present a flat level sort of sailing, narrative, despite the fact that there's storms everywhere that could easily point to our direction. And I'm okay with it. Like I say, I'm delighted that Paratici's back, Sav. I really rate him. I'm delighted he's back. But do I think that this solution is the long-term solution? No. I think that Johan Lange will probably eventually depart the football club. Whether that's in, hopefully not in 3 months, because that would just be like, this obviously was a disaster. The next 18 months or something, I would imagine that one of them departs and moves on, because they want to have their own ability to just make their own decisions and do their own thing.
Yeah.
So
it's very interesting, because at least what we can see is the club is very different to where it was 4 months ago. Whichever way we look at it, whatever people think of different characters that have been hired, the club is very different to where it was 4 months ago. And it does feel like there is this level of serenity around it at the moment. There's no drama on the pitch. There doesn't seem to be any drama off the pitch. There's no players saying bad things in the press on their social media. There's no agents coming out and talking about my player this, my player that. Better caliber of players coming in during the transfer. It does feel very much like we're on the right path.
Yep.
But as with anything, a journey is a journey. It's a long journey. You can't just go, oh, mile 1 of the marathon went well. It's brilliant. Yeah, we'll see as we go on. But the last thing I wanted to bring up with you, Sean, was this. Really interesting, right? As I said, I've given Vinay some credit there, and I'm sure people will go, "Oh, Vinay at Arsenal, and he did this." I don't care. I care what he does at Spurs.
Sure.
But it's the bit in the middle of these three sections here where he says, "Together, Fabio and Johan will lead with purpose, building not only a competitive men's squad, but a connected football ecosystem where every detail contributes for our shared ambition to make our club a benchmark for excellence in world football." Now, this is now the third or fourth time that Vinay has approached us all. And great, I like it. Thank you, Vinay. I like the transparency, my CEO and all that nonsense. Brilliant. But the words he's using constantly: success, football excellence, domination, winning. There's a degree of pressure he's putting on himself and Spurs Football Club now, Sean, that he's telling us all this stuff.
Yeah.
Now in transfer windows, everyone is going to naturally gravitate to these describing words and go, well, hang on. You told us excellence. You've just gone and signed a 17-year-old from Brazil. You told us excellence. You've just gone and bought Kevin Schade from Brentford. A lot of pressure they're putting on themselves is my point here.
Yeah, by the way, that paragraph reads to me like a load of word salad. Like it sounds great. Like, I'm like, wait, what? What are we saying here?
It's like Russell Brand wrote that. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That sounds incredible, but doesn't really mean very much. But if you want to take the energy from it, the energy suggests once again that we're going to be doing more. We're going to be, our ambitions are there, and we're going to be trying.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. The one thing I would say is that there's a hell of a lot of the fan base that the narrative, the kind of the zeitgeist, if you like, that were very anti our ownership for a long time, as long as I've been in the community, that all of a sudden are like they've given up that whole ghost, and now they're getting sucked into, there's a new time, new vision, and all that stuff. And
it's amazing.
It's really, it's obviously working. It's working in terms of like placating, let them eat cake kind of narratives. The king is dead, long live the king. But I'm interested to see how long those people that were vehemently against our ownership and everything else, I want to see how long they sort of remain patient for in a world where it doesn't materialize, because we haven't really received it. We haven't had a new window yet where we can see this. But and January is a difficult window generally anyway. But I want to see the people that we know that are very much on the, Papa's got a brand new bag kind of thing. I want to see what the how long it lasts if January doesn't materialize into something really exciting. We shall see, mate. We shall see. But like, again, this is the problem, right? Like we all would love to see Semenyo. Most fans would love to see Semenyo. You've now got two heads that are making that decision, right? Possibly three, and then with the director of football as well that's coming in soon, possibly four. What happens if one of them says Semenyo's the guy? Let's throw all of our eggs into that basket. The other one says it's unrealistic. He's an Arsenal fan. There's four other clubs. Let's throw all of our eggs into Ademola Lookman. The other one says no, Malik Fofana. And the fourth one says we've got enough money. Let's go after Keenan Yildiz. What happens? Do you get paralysis by analysis, mate? Like, who gets the overarching say? And then do you spend the entire January window arguing between yourselves who it is that you should actually put a bid in for? And then you turn around on January 25th when you finally done like heads or tails, or gone, I'll give you this one if you get me out the next one, and you finally put a bid in, and they turn around and say, no, he's not for sale. It's too late in the window. Like, can you not like foresee this being a little bit of a problem? I don't want to be the dampener, mate. I know you said at the start, like maybe I'm going negative. No.
It's a good talking point
than positives.
It's a good talking point, because when you bring our fan base into it, and obviously I was someone that I still have my reservations against Dinic, by the way. I can only judge as we move on. So when people, I think a lot of people, when Daniel Levy stepped down, was pushed, whatever, a lot of people went, oh my God, we've got our Tottenham back. And whoa, it's still the same person at the top. It's still the same people at the top running the club. So I've turned around and I've said, I'm willing that, show us, okay, there must be a reason why you are rejecting these expressions of interest, right? you are peddling the lines through sources close to the Lewis family, right? You are peddling the line through Vinay. You are peddling the line through Paratici and Lang that success is what matters. Success, success, success. Sure, I'm now going to judge you on this. However, what I'm not going to do is we get to Saturday, January the 31st, right? And the transfer window's shutting. And we haven't signed 3 worldies. And we go, it's not changed. This is where I want to see how the fan base works. Because do I want to see a player coming in January? Sure. Am I of the opinion that we just going to get any player we go after? No.
Of course not.
Alex Crook yesterday, for example, depending on how much impetus you wanted, said that Liverpool were favourites for Semenyo, by the way, right? Now, if that's the case, are we then entitled to have a go at Enoch for not landing Semenyo when those types of conversations?
This has been my argument, right? Like the expectations of the fan base is that we should always be able to sign world-class players, but when we are the team that doesn't have the propensity, the relative recency of winning too many high-profile trophies, and other teams have got all of the draw that we have, plus more, plus money, all that stuff. Sometimes you have to shake hands with where you sit in the pecking order, right? Like it is what it is. So I'm with you, but like the fan base, mate. Like they will, the wind will change direction, and they will move with it, one way or the other. And you're right. Though the best way to describe it right now is fascinating. And like I say, I don't know how I feel about this one, but my gut instinct says it sounds good on paper, but it won't work out. But in the short term, I'm sure they'll do everything they can to make it work in the short term because they need to justify the decision in the first place. But whether or not we're, by next summer, we're trying to invoke narratives that why it is like January is difficult anyway, but by next summer, if we're getting to the end of the window and we still haven't done all our business like we didn't do last summer, if we're having these conversations around is the reason why because there's too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, I guarantee you that will be a conversation in July of next year.
As with anything, as my mum always used to say to me, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We will see over the next 2, 3, 4 windows, has the pattern changed? Have the behaviours changed? So it's all well and good. As I've said, it's all well and good going to get Kudus and Paulinho and Xavi Simons. It's great. That's brilliant. Next window, what are we going to do? Go and buy more 17-year-olds. You know what I mean? Because then you'll go, well, what are we doing here? So let's see. Let's see over the next few windows what happens. Let's see what happens with Lang and Paratici. Maybe we're the trailblazers. Maybe this is what happens to all football clubs in the future. Who knows? Maybe. Sean, I'll leave it there. It's very interesting. We will see what happens. Thank God international football is over. We're back to playing football this weekend. Guys and girls, leave your comments. I will always try and respond to as many comments as possible, as long as they are as long as they are reasonable. Yeah, as long as they're not just, oh, he's shit, and you're not telling us why. So Sean, thank you very much. Really appreciate you.
Enjoyed it.
Chat. Guys and girls, you're probably watching this at about 4 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. UK time. I'm live tonight, 8 p.m. with Jay Rated, who's always good for a football chat. Join me then. Much love. Subscribe to Sean. Subscribe to myself. And as always, come on, you Spurs.